Casey, thanks. And from looking back to looking ahead, a winter that brought half the normal amount of snow, followed by a dry spring, has many worried that the 117 fire won't be the last. So tonight we begin a series of reports on all aspects of fire season, beginning with the fear that followed two of the worst fires in history here and how much of that is left today. The skies over Black Forest have never been more visible, and the snow has never melted faster. The rebuilding here continues, although not for everyone who lost a home or business. Piles of dead trees litter the landscape. Thousands more remain. Just like the memories of losing nearly 500 homes, in some cases watching them burn. In the case of the Waldo Canyon fire, memories of the first flames coming over the mountain and the tankers desperately trying to stop it from reaching the 346 homes lost. The Carson Midway fire in March and the 117 fire in April, one of the largest in Colorado history, were both reminders of how quickly a fire can spread under the right conditions. The 117 fire consuming 40,000 acres in just a few days.
And you could just see the whole thing was just engulfed.
All my pictures.
The fear of another catastrophe is hard to quantify, but examining home sales after previous fires does give some insight. Jeff Piggott is a longtime real estate broker in North Colorado Springs. He researched the housing market in Black Forest for each year after the 2013 fire, and to his surprise, the frequency of sales held steady.
I had assumed that we were going to see a plummet, or we were going to see less sales after the fire. And I looked at the numbers, and the sales have stayed consistent.
But while the number of home sales didn't change much after the fire, property values did. They were down significantly afterward, and it took about 3 years for them to recover to normal levels. Today, you would hardly notice the difference. It's a similar story in the Mountain Shadows neighborhood. Once again, reminders of the Waldo Canyon fire are in plain view, but homes here returned even faster than Black Forest. Piggott believes the fire prevention resources available today allow families to purchase homes without worry.
The mitigation efforts that are in place today, the services, the free services that are available to someone that has a lot that needs an evaluation, has really relieved a lot of concerns of that.
Still, at least some fear is unavoidable without knowing when or where the next big one will break out. Over the next 4 days, News Channel 13 will bring you a series of reports to prepare you for the heart of fire season. Shannon Brenius will share what lessons Colorado can learn from the catastrophic fires in California. Chase Golightly will take you to the area of most concern right now in Colorado Springs, Cheyenne Mountain.
We have the potential for catastrophic wildfire.
Stephanie Sierra will show you how to prepare your family and how many families in the danger zone are not.
Every year we try to cut some.
And finally, Stacy Garvilla will have a closer look at how the Waldo Canyon and Black Forest environments have recovered. And again, our coverage continues tomorrow. We have a full team of anchors and reporters looking to make your summer fire season safe. Here's a peek at what our own Shannon Brenius is working on.
Dry brush and grass is overgrown and brittle. These are the kind of conditions California was experiencing before their worst wildfire season ever last year.
We're all feeling it.
What lessons Colorado can learn from it? I'm Shannon Brenius with that story as we continue our Fire Week.
Preparing for wildfires at 10 o'clock, KRDO, News Channel 13.
When it comes to saving homes and lives when fire breaks out, it often pays to compare fire responses and learn from others. California had an historic fire season last year, but the lives and homes lost also provide us with valuable lessons for the future. Good morning, Colorado. Shannon Brenius looks at how Colorado can learn from California as we continue our special series, Preparing for Wildfires.
Wind-whipped wildfires, flames in a fury. Chaos reigns as homes ignite.
The flames are moving down this hill very fast, and the wind's very strong as well.
The sense of urgency evident in news coverage and from fire crews as the Thomas Fire in Southern California grew to 250,000 acres, claiming more than 1,000 buildings, most of them homes.
The wind is pushing it through. There's nothing that's going to stop it.
We had over 300 fire engines up and around the homes.
This on top of the Napa fires up north. With these fires still fresh in fire professionals' minds, what lessons can be gleaned from California's devastation? Compared to Colorado, California has much more extensive resources, understandable in a state with 31 million acres. But fire officials say the largest firefighting fleet in the world, California's, also has a wide range of capabilities. Then there's a difference in how each state deals with defensible space. In certain California jurisdictions, it's mandatory for property owners to clear around buildings. Failing to do so carries fines, even tax liens. Colorado doesn't have any such laws. They're just recommendations.
The steep, mountainous, treacherous terrain is a challenge. That's a given whether you're in California or in Colorado. But what sets California apart is that in addition to their professional firefighters and hotshot crews, they also make use of inmate crews.
Even on a per capita basis, California's inmate firefighting force is 7 times as numerous as Colorado's. A program supervisor here says it would take more funding to be able to grow that force. Meanwhile, even within California, what went right and what went wrong with these fires, providing lessons from which Colorado can learn. PG&E delayed turning off power to a stricken area around Napa. That allowed downlines to spark thousands of smaller fires. Weeks later, utilities had learned, being proactive by turning off part of the power grid.
Our biggest concerns right now are in the areas south of there.
Taking note of what worked with firefights in the past may be the best way to form strategies for fighting flames in the future. Shannon Brenius, KRDO News Channel 13.
There's also a big lesson in how evacuation order delays can jeopardize lives. In some cases, waiting too long meant residents were asleep when those alerts went out. Also, cell phone towers burned and fell, which meant no one could get the calls. Earlier notification will be part of California's strategies going forward.
Fires like the ones in California are rare here, but for one mountain just west of Colorado Springs, the potential is very real. Our special series continues tomorrow with News Channel 13's Chase Golightly and why some fire officials call Cheyenne Mountain a ticking time bomb.
The biggest fear for people who live and work on Cheyenne Mountain is knowing it's only a matter of time before a massive wildfire breaks out where they live. In fact, the greatest risk in all of Colorado Springs are here.
If history is any evidence of it, we have the potential for catastrophic wildfires.
Homeowners on the mountain doing what they can to prevent the calamity.
Hope we never have one come up this way. Right. We know the odds are against us because it's been a long time.
Fire officials saying it's not if a massive fire erupts on Cheyenne, it's when.
It's time for them to burn.
Preparing for wildfires at 10 o'clock, KRDO News Channel 13.
Now to a story you will only see here. We continue to track the threat of wildfires, and the focus is on one mountain just west of Colorado Springs. It has firefighters concerned it could go up at any time. They're calling Cheyenne Mountain a ticking time bomb. News Channel 13's Chase Golightly joins us in the studio with why fire officials say a wildfire catastrophe is bound to happen. Chase.
Bart, Heather, people who live on Cheyenne Mountain say every day they worry a fire could ignite, doing what they can to prevent it. But fire officials I spoke with say it's unavoidable.
Hundreds of homes crowded together at the base of Cheyenne Mountain, nestled around trees and brush. While it is a beautiful place to live, it is also the most dangerous place to be if a wildfire were to break out.
The more you live here and the more you see it happen, the more you know it could be us.
For those who live on Cheyenne Mountain, seeing fires is common for them. Laura and Chuck Solanas say they have seen the Carson Midway fire, 117 fire, and more happen from their backyard.
I mean, when you're on the mountain, you can see fire, you can see it, and it really is a constant reminder how careful you need to be.
They also saw the Waldo Canyon fire that burned 346 homes, killing 2 people. It happened north of Cheyenne, but these homeowners were still affected.
Devastating just to watch all those homes going up, and ash was even coming out towards us.
And we had some friends that lived over there, so it was terrible. They lost their home.
Down the road, the Calendines take fire mitigation very seriously.
Every year we try to cut some. This year bigger than most.
But it wasn't always that way for them. Steve Calendine admits that when they first moved on the mountain, he didn't think a fire could happen near them.
You wouldn't think so. You're like, if it did, then they'd get here really quick and get it put out. But recent fires in California, Napa Valley, they couldn't get it put out.
But every year, they clear out their backyards of dried up leaves, branches, anything that will burn.
We just hope we never have one come up this way.
Right.
We know the odds are against us because it's been a long time.
It has been a very long time, more than 60 years since a major fire broke out on Cheyenne Mountain. Broadmoor Fire Chief Noel Perrin says these residents' worst fear could become a reality.
If history is any evidence of it, we have the potential for catastrophic wildfire.
Broadmoor Fire Department is the first line of defense to protect the mountain. It consists of two-man teams that cover 1,100 homes. While the team may be small, they have gear other departments don't to be able to easily traverse the mountain.
We can ride these motorcycles up there in around half the time that we can get up there in a truck. Not everybody can do this job.
Using this equipment to respond to all types of fires that we never hear about.
A single tree fire from a lightning strike to a vehicle fire off the side of the road to an unattended campfire.
Those small fires turn into big fires, as we've seen in the past.
Evidenced by the previous catastrophes that we've had at Waldo and Black Forest.
But what makes Cheyenne Mountain particularly dangerous is the decades it has gone without a fire.
The last devastating blaze happened in 1950. It burned 50 square miles on Cheyenne. You can see in these photos the devastation. It killed 9 people and seriously injured 30 soldiers at Camp Carson. In the decades that have passed, that dry, fast-burning undergrowth has grown and grown to the point where any spark could ignite a massive wildfire. And if that were to happen,
if we were faced with a fire on Cheyenne Mountain, we would bring in every resource possible.
So this has been mitigated fairly substantially up here?
That's why Broadmoor Fire and other departments do as much fire mitigation on the mountain as they can. Even the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo trains for the scenario. Every year, they run a wildfire drill, packing up the animals quickly if a blaze were to happen.
As you can imagine, the millions of acres of trees, of pine trees, is a insurmountable task to mitigate.
Right now, fire officials say with the moisture and humidity we have seen recently, they are hoping the fire won't happen this year, but say at some point there will be a massive fire at Cheyenne Mountain. Live in the studio, Chase Golightly, KRDO News Channel 13.
Chase, thank you. And we continue our Wildfire Week coverage tomorrow. We've looked at our city's biggest fears, the lessons learned from California, and the extreme dangers that surround Cheyenne Mountain.
Coming up tomorrow, Stephanie Sierra will look into how we can all be prepared and what areas are far from ready.
This is what firefighters are worried about. Highly flammable trees touching houses, brush in the driveway. Homeowners not mitigating their properties.
It's everyone's biggest fear, a fire taking away everything, destroying homes and threatening lives. We've seen it before with Waldo Canyon.
You may have hours, you may have minutes, you may have seconds to get out.
With some areas of the city left with a question, when will it happen?
Sadly, I think people think more about when, not if.
Threatening the safety of tens of thousands of people, many of whom aren't ready.
Coming up tomorrow night, I'll show how we can all be fire ready in this special report you'll only see here on News Channel 13 at 10 o'clock.
Tonight, we continue to track the threat of wildfires, but this time we're looking into how prepared we really are.
We're taking you through neighborhoods surrounded in brush, living in fear of losing everything to a vicious wildfire. This is video from the Waldo Canyon fire. Those flames, an important reminder that this tragedy could happen again. It was not a fear here 6 years ago, but today it is on everyone's mind. Tonight we're looking at who's actually working to stop it and who is really fire ready. Stephanie Sierra has this special report you'll only see here.
We begin tonight with a man named John Spangler. He lives here in the hills of North Cheyenne Canyon. He's one of tens of thousands of people who face the fear of coming home to nothing if a fire were to sweep down the mountain, leaving nothing but a massive burn scar behind.
For the past 42 years, John Spangler has lived in the hills of North Cheyenne Canyon.
There's a giant Doug fir next to the house. I've got a couple of junipers near the house.
Highly flammable trees corner his lot. Some even touch his house.
My biggest fear is on one of those red flag days, a windy day, somebody being irresponsible up the canyon with a cigarette butt and starting a fire.
It's a fear many in his neighborhood share.
Well, it's everybody's biggest fear around here because there's so much that can burn.
With the Waldo Canyon fire especially coming down into mountain shadows, I mean, we have the exact same scenario here.
His backyard is miles of brush, trees, and overgrowth at the base of Cheyenne Mountain. It makes his home a target for fire.
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and hopefully you're prepared.
Ashley Whitworth with the Colorado Springs Wildfire Mitigation Team consults homeowners on how to be ready.
When we come out and meet with homeowners, what we're looking at is really the first 30 feet around their structure.
Take a look at this. Here are problems tens of thousands of people haven't dealt with. Wood shake roofs, highly flammable siding, and wood mulch around the house.
Do they have trees, within 5 feet of the house? Have they done any mitigation on those trees?
Fire mitigation specialists tell us in order to keep your house in the safe zone, you have to mitigate 30 feet from your house. This means any extra overgrowth should be trimmed up or completely removed, especially if it's under highly flammable trees.
While the threat of fire is everywhere after our dry winter, neighborhoods south of the Air Force Academy up to Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station have extreme risk. Yet homeowners in these areas have piles of brush on their lawns, firewood in the driveway, and oh wait, you won't believe this one, even trees growing through their homes. Yes, you saw that right.
I guess it's denial. Maybe it won't happen to me, or, my house will be okay. Maybe it's the other side of the canyon.
Steve McCutcheon lives close to Cheyenne Mountain. He believes less than 2% of his neighborhood is fire ready.
Even though they're very afraid of it, a lot of times there's not a whole lot you can do.
I think I've got pretty much all of this stuff.
Meet Frank Dennis. He's 80 years old and not hiding behind any pile of excuses.
So I've got stuff 30 feet back from our house and 10 feet around the house, nothing that'll burn. And that's about all I can do.
Well, you've just met 3 people, all dealing with the same fears, doing what they can to reduce risk. But as long as they live in these hills, they know that risk will never go away.
If you're not fire ready, you're not just threatening your own safety, but the safety of your neighbors. We have more tips on how to keep your home fire ready over on our website, KRDO.com. Reporting in Cheyenne Canyon, Stephanie Sierra, KRDO News Channel 13.
Wow, 30 feet clearance from your home. That's a big space.
It's a tough balance. Yeah. You don't want to live your life in fear. At the same time, if you don't acknowledge it, then you find yourself not ready in case something were to happen. So
somewhere in the middle.
You got to find yourself somewhere in the middle. That's right.
And you continue that tomorrow then too, Stacy.
Yes, I will be actually wrapping up the fire series. So tomorrow night at 10, as we wrap up Wildfire Week, I'll take you on a journey through the burned areas of Waldo Canyon and Black Forest. As I saw the devastation for the first time, even 5 and 6 years later, the extent of the damage left behind was still very overwhelming.
Honestly, it just takes your breath away to see it firsthand, to see it in person.
We drove into Waldo Canyon and Black Forest and walked through the forest, taking in the sights and the sounds. Trees are still covered in ash and laying on the ground. Very little green can be seen in areas that experienced the hottest part of the fire. As the journey continues, you will see where regrowth is occurring steadily. And tonight, we wrap up a full week of special coverage on wildfire prevention and safety. One reason it's so important, of course, the damage from a major fire can last for generations. Having not lived here in 2012 or 2013, I decided to venture into Black Forest and Waldo Canyon this week to see how these areas are recovering from those fateful wildfires that many of you remember so well.
Our journey started by taking in the wonderful sights that Teller County has to offer. Views of Pikes Peak and those lush pine and fir trees. We kept driving along Rampart Range Road until we saw it. And there it was, like hitting a wall of devastation.
Look at all these trees that are down right now. And then it's just barren.
Honestly, it just takes your breath away.
My first reaction was the overwhelming sense of just how large these fires were.
The devastation from the Waldo Canyon fire is so widespread that you can see it behind me right here.
And here, and here, and here. When walking through both Waldo Canyon and Black Forest, you can now see so much wide open space. This includes views of fallen trunks and limbs and trees without needles or leaves.
There's no green as far as the eye can see right here.
Not only was it eye-opening to take in the scale of the devastation, but also to witness the extreme damage left behind by the fire burning so incredibly hot.
Standing in the heart of this burn scar, you can really see the black ash still left on all these trees. When you get close to these trees and touch them, it doesn't seem like this happened 6 years ago. It seems like it could have happened just yesterday.
Strolling through these burn scars gives a sense of the regrowth that is taking place each year. New grasses and springtime flowers are appearing, bringing life and pops of color within the ash. Sounds of birds chirping and water running are little reminders that the forest will continue to rebuild.
I've watched so many videos of this fire burning, so I have that image in my mind, and then I come out here and get a whole different image.
Images such as the astounding view of Pikes Peak that used to be obscured by lush conifer trees. Where once tall green pine and fir trees stood, now baby aspens and scrub oak are emerging, changing the look of the forest from what so many remember. These fires may have changed the landscape forever, but as they say, there is still beauty to be found among the ash.
Wow, such a stark difference though when you see that.
It really is. It was just amazing to walk through and see it firsthand.
Very personal experience to kind of go through, a reminder of what's happened, but also kind of how far it's come since.
Exactly.
It'll be a while before those trees fall, that's for sure. Yes. Stacy, thanks. Coming up.